Hey guys, what's going on? My name is World, and this is my second jam session for CompTia Security Plus. And this is pretty much going to be some basic understanding, foundational concepts still, because we're in phase one still of these jam sessions. We still got a couple of months before we take the test. Not to mention, we're studying for Security Plus, Certified Ethical Hacker, and CyberOps. So our main fresh knowledge is a lot of forensics and certified ethical hacking because we just came from semesters of that in school. So we're not too fresh on the foundational concepts. This is why we want to go over these jam sessions and get into this. And we're trying to work on some multiple choice strategies and different ways that we could use on the test. There's some questions that CompTia may ask that you have to have a good overall knowledge of a lot of things for one particular question, like backup types and data controllers and things like that. So we wanted to get into some things in those categories so we can freshen up on that knowledge. So that's pretty much what we'll start off with on this jam session. Uh, let's see, first thing we'll talk about is testing environments. If you have work in this field and you find yourself doing a test for a company, maybe a penetration test or something like that, you'll have different environments that you might be able to go into the test with. So you have your known internals, unknown internals. So that's pretty much what I mean by testing environments. And they call them for CompTIA anyway, black box, white box, gray box. That's what you probably see. And for black box, that's what the hacker, the threat actor, if you will, that's what they would probably be in their environment. Is not going to be known at all. They're just going in completely blind, and they would be using all the methodologies that they would know how to use: reconnaissance, scanning, weaponization, whatever they know how to use. If you were the penetration tester, the only difference here would be that you have permission to do the work and you would sign all your agreements with the company. They'd let you know exactly, what the rules of engagement for this operation would be, and then you would do the work, but you would have no information going in. White box is total opposite for that. I'd imagine no hacker would have a white box situation because here you get full access to the environment. You know everything about the source code of applications and things that they would want you to test on the system, whoever hired you, and it would be a long process because you have a whole list of things that they want to make sure that you test this, and that. Whereas a black box, you're testing things, but there's no list of what they want you to test. You're trying to figure out what you can find that's vulnerable. If there's nothing vulnerable, then there's just nothing that you find. And that doesn't mean that there's nothing vulnerable. That just means that you didn't find it. With white box, they might tell you everything on a whole big list. I want you to test this, and this. So that might take you some time. And then a gray box is somewhere in the middle where they would give you some information, maybe some login codes, and or maybe access to certain areas that won't be so difficult for you to do. Um, Partially they'll do this because they don't want you breaking anything. That's pretty much what that's about. And also they might not need you taking so long. They might just need specific things done. And that's my understanding of it. Remember, I'm a student. I don't do this work. This is my general understanding of how this concept works. And then I also wanted to throw in penetration testing versus vulnerability scanning. I know CompTIA is definitely going to want you to know the difference between those two because they're not the same. Penetration testing is a manual process that you would do scanning and all types of manual work using attacks and tools. And this is something that you're doing in the environment. versus a vulnerability scan is usually an automated process done by software that just runs a scan to see if it finds any known vulnerabilities on the system, or perhaps unknown vulnerability that it might find on the system. But the key word and takeaway is that it's an automated process versus a manual process, is what CompTia usually wants you to know about that. Um, One thing that you may have to figure out when you're doing your vulnerability scanning is how vulnerable are companies' process or processes, depending on how they manage data and information. It's a big thing in information security, what people do with their data. So, depending on where it is at what particular time, certain people may be responsible for the data, and it's important to have a clear delineation of those duties. So, when we're talking about data governance, which is what CompTia calls it, we're going to hear things like the data owner, the controller, the steward, custodian, right? So it's easy to get tripped up on that because you may not know what any of that is. And you just think that, oh, just whoever created the data is who has all the rules and operations and procedures that goes along with the data, which is ironically is not true. The owner of the material is usually a higher up in the company and a less technical person. And that's what you'll usually notice. The higher up a person is in the company, like the CEO of a company, they're usually stakeholders in the company and not the most technical people. They need the technical department to relay information back to them, or to control information, or do certain processes on information, because they don't have the technical skill involved to get that work done. But ultimately, they are the responsible party for the data. So anything that anybody does to the data, ultimately the owner is responsible for it, which is a weird situation to be in. You're not a technical person, you have all the responsibility for this data, and you have to trust people to do all this type of stuff with the data. Yeah. Now, the controller is the person who manages how the data is going to be used. So they would tell another department called the processor what to do with the data, what rules the data has to be done, what stipulations the data has to be maintained under, and then the processor, which is usually a third party, they would actually do the physical work of processing the data. And they would run all the databases and everything that has to be with controlling the data. Now, you see on the screen I have steward and custodian. That's usually interchangeable for CompTia. If you see a data custodian or you see a data steward, they're usually talking about the same person, and this is usually responsible party for security and the accuracy of the information, the integrity, privacy, anything that has to do with compliance, sensitive data, access control, who could access the data. Anything in that regard is usually the custodian of the data. And for governance, CompTia has a bunch of questions that they can ask you on this data. So just make sure you know the difference between the owner, a high level person in the company, usually a non-technical person, full control, full responsibility, take control out of there, they don't control anything, full responsibility for anything that happens with the data. And then you have the custodian is the one who handles the responsibility and for security and accuracy, privacy, and compliance. Those are usually the two people that they ask you about, but you still want to know about your controller and your processor for data governance. With data, speaking of, backup is a very important concept in information security because it deals with availability. If you have loss of system or loss of service, denial of service, ransomware, any kind of attack to your organization, you want to have access to that data. You want to have quick access to the data. You want to have availability, uptime as fast as possible. So usually backups is how you're going to get that done. Now, depending on how often you need the backups to be done, or how much space you have to have the backups, because you got to be mindful that backups take space on your system depending on where you're putting them. So keep all that in mind. And we do have some notes on backups here. So full, incremental, and differential are the backup types that CompTia usually wants you to be mindful of. Snapshots is a different thing. I'll get into that in a second, but it's very, very helpful. And but it's not really what CompTIA wants you to know for backup types. Is usually for virtual machines. So I'll get to that in a second. With the full backup is a complete copy of all the data on one backup file. Is the most comprehensive out of all of them because it's a full copy of everything on the system. But the problem with it is that it's the most resource intensive. So it's going to take a lot of space if you're backing up a lot of data. Because it's going to be a full duplicate copy. So if you're backing up 100 gigabytes, you're now going to have 200 gigabytes because you have a copy of a full 100 gigabytes. That's the full backup. Now, incremental backup, it copies data that has changed since the last backup. The last full backup or incremental backup doesn't matter. Since the last backup, whatever has changed, this is what the incremental backup is going to copy. It's faster if you want to use a backup from this because you're not backing up the whole disk, you're backing up pieces, so it's efficient for storage. You don't have to take up much space on storage. If you don't save much since the last backup, then your incremental backup is going to be a small file. But it does take longer to recover multiple files versus recovering from one file. A full backup is one file. Incremental could be multiple files depending on how many times you're making backups. Now, differential backup is kind of like a hybrid situation. It's between full and incremental. It captures all changes since the last full backup. So whenever you did a full backup, anything that changes from then is what this is capturing. It's the faster recovery than incremental because remember, incremental, excuse me, is could be multiple disk, whereas a differential is going to be one disk again that has everything that was changed since the last full backup. And the snapshot is like a full backup as well, but on a virtual machine. You get a full copy of the machine at a specific moment in time. Like if I'm going to take a snapshot right now, everything that's on my system will be copied. So if anything goes wrong, this is usually like if I'm going to make any type of change on the system, I'll make a snapshot first. So in case what I do, whatever change I make breaks the system, I could always just go back to the snapshot and I'll have a pre state before I made any changes with that broke the system. I'll get a pre-state before that and I can just run from there and note any changes so I can make a difference. Whatever broke the system, I can, check to see what source code or whatever might be flawed. Right, so that's where my snapshot will come in handy for those who use a lot of virtual machines, which we do in this field. This here, I had tons of problems remembering because, again, when you don't use things physically, it's hard to remember them, specific concepts, because you don't really have a reason to remember certain things. So RAID was something that fell in that category for me. So let's figure this out. RAID is going to be for redundancy. You want availability in your systems. So if something fails, you want some kind of failover. You don't want a system to go down. So let's say you have multiple drives attached together in some kind of a configuration for redundancy. In case one drive fails, another drive would pick up. So that's the overall concept that we want to get away with when it comes to RAID. Now, when it comes to the levels of RAID, that's more specific. to what CompTia is going to be looking for you to know. So I don't know anything about RAID 6. This is just a chart that we have here. And not to mention CompTia, I haven't seen them ask questions about RAID 6. Usually it's 0, 1, 5, 1 plus 0, which is 10. So we'll go over those ones. 0 is also called striping. You're going to have two layers or two columns, how they look like, which are two files. Pretty much what they are, the files, because you're copying disks, so you're gonna have two of them. And striping means that if you have like one file, it's gonna evenly distribute that one file into the two locations. So if it has 8 bytes, byte 1 will go in the first location, byte 2 will go in the second, byte 3 in the first, byte 4 in the second. So evenly distributed into the two locations, and that's why they call it striping. They call it RAID 0. Well, they don't call it RAID 0 for this, but this is a reason that you can use the 0 to remember that it doesn't have any fault tolerance. RAID 0 has 0 fault tolerance. And the reason is because of the design of it. Since you're breaking up your data into two locations, but you're splitting it, if one of those locations goes down, the other location only has half of the data, and half of the data isn't going to give you what you need. Now you lost, pretty much all the data because it's going to be useless to you. So RAID 0 does not provide any redundancy. However, it is high performance because it is quick. So some people still use it, but they just know that there's no redundancy. Maybe in a home lab you don't care about redundancy, so you might use it for speed. RAID 1, called mirroring or duplexing, is two columns again, but the difference here is that you're getting a full copy of the data. So if I have 8 bytes, I'm going to get 8 bytes on one drive, and I'm going to get 8 bytes on the other drive, a full copy. So this is high redundancy because if one drive fails, the other drive has a full copy of the information on it, so I can use that drive to get my system back up and running, versus with the RAID 0, when that drive failed, the other drive only had half the information on it, so I'm pretty much out of luck. RAID 1 is a mirroring situation, still uses 2 disks, but I have that redundancy. Now, RAID 5, which is another one that CompTia asks us to know, is striping with parity. Parity is a system that helps because RAID 0, we had striping. Remember, we had to split all our information, but if we lost one disk, we lost everything. So with parity, you need a 3-disk minimum. RAID 0 was 2 disks. RAID 1, you had 2 disks. Now with RAID 5, you need a 3-disk minimum, because it's like RAID 0 because you do have the striping, so your information is split among different disks, but you have parity bits. Parity bits is the information that needs to put all that information together if you lost a disk. The parity disk, which is the third one, will be able to take the pieces that are on disk 1 and the pieces that are on disk 2, put them all together so that you still have the full information, and that's where it's called parity. It's a little faster, you get a higher redundancy rate, but parity, the calculations to put those pieces together, that process takes a little bit of time, so it's not as fast as full mirroring. And then RAID 10, which is 1 plus 0, is speed of striping with redundancy of mirroring. So it's another system. Don't get me lying and try to explain how it works, because again, remember, I had issues even remembering how all this works in the first place. So RAID 1 plus 0 wasn't even the ones that I was trying to remember, but I do know that it has like a hybrid situation, which has the benefits of RAID 0 and 1. It has the speed of the striping and the redundancy of the mirroring, but you need at least 4 drives. So what I did for a takeaway for this, so it could help me with the exam, is I know RAID 0, no redundancy; RAID 1, full redundancy; RAID 0 is 2 drives. RAID 1 is also 2 drives, so I have all that. And then when we jump up to RAID 5, you need 3 drives. When you jump up to RAID 10, you need 4 drives. And pretty much I get that for my takeaway. And I think with that, I can pass most of these questions on the exam. And then here we have a little bit about other things in redundancy. Fault tolerance is something else. Redundancy, that whole concept of failover rates and stuff like that. So you can pause this and read that, magnify it a bit if you need to. But I'm not going to read all that because we just talked about RAID 0, which pretty much covers the concept of redundancy. Um, now, another thing, if you have fault tolerance, redundancy along the same lines, if you have a disaster recovery, if you have a full, like a natural disaster, blew away half your power lines and everything, nothing's coming up, you just got down system and nothing works, there's ways that you could recover your system. And they, in CompTia Security Plus, they're going to be called your hot, cold, warm sites. So pretty much this is information about hot, cold, and warm sites. A hot site is like if you had a full backup system, everything, all systems, all the programs, everything is up and running already. So like if you're buying products for your main system, you would be also buying a duplicate set of product for your hot site, so that if anything went down in your main site, that hot site would be up and running. You've set your employees up in there and everything is ready to go. That's a hot site. That is the most expensive option because now you have to pay double for everything that you have in one site, right? A warm site is less than that. So in the warm site, you have your setup, you have infrastructure in there. You might have like racks and equipment racks, but you would have to go in there and set everything up yourself. Your employees would have to go and put all things together, run all the programs, and put the infrastructure all in there. But it would just be you'll have your power and everything, and then your racks and stuff. So it's almost ready to go. A lot less expensive. You don't you have a whole building and everything that you need, but it's not fully set up to where you could just seamlessly go in there. And then cold site is just power and bandwidth. You don't have nothing in there. It's just a room or a facility, a warehouse, whatever size you need, but it just has power and bandwidth. So it is the least of a setup. It's for companies that don't foresee a natural disaster. Maybe they never had one, so they don't want to have the responsibility and financial duty of having a full hot site. It's not necessary, so they'll have something like a cold site set up. This is architecture for the business. Somebody has to design all this when they think of data recovery and business continuity. Cloud services is something that I had issues with when I was dealing with remembering. And the reason why I said I had issues with it is because I usually get some of this stuff wrong when I'm dealing with CompTia. They'll get the ones I get wrong. Uh, Platform as a service and infrastructure as a service, for whatever reason, sometimes I get tripped up on those. So let's see if we could figure out some ways that we could take this away with strategy. Um, we got our cloud models. Well, for the most part, software as a service, I never really had an issue remembering that. It's a very popular service. It's been blah, 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 been around for a long time. But when I think of software as a service, I'm thinking of Gmail, Dropbox, something that I could just go on my computer. I don't have to buy anything. I don't have to purchase nothing. I could just sign up my account for Gmail and I can just go in there and use it. My Dropbox, I could just go in there and use it. I don't have to set up no back end server and I don't have to do anything like that. It's just an app pretty much that I'm using on the cloud. So that's much software as a service, little programs that I can use online. Now, Platform as a service, like if you were a 5-year-old, which is how I needed it to be explained to me, is like if I have a big ass toy box and all the toys are in there ready for me to play with. I could build stuff with my little Legos and things like that. The only thing is that I can't change any of these Legos and I can't get new ones. Everything that's in there, it is what it is. So pretty much like if that was platform as a service, uh, you have tools that you're using on the internet and you could create, manage stuff like that, but you don't have full control over the tools, or you can't change anything over the infrastructure. So because you don't have direct access to the actual systems, um, versus like infrastructure as a service gives you complete control of everything, and you could change everything. So if you want an example of like, I don't know if you use Amazon Web Services, but in this field, for our forensic projects and stuff we create on our EC2 instances, Amazon EC2 instance is infrastructure as a service. Um, Amazon Elastic Beanstalk, or like Google App Engine, for developers, we use that. Those are platform as services. So those are like some examples that they give you. And they give you some examples here too, like Microsoft Azure is also platform as a service. So if you read here, they give you some information. All these screenshots I got from one of the resources that we use in the actual group. The reason why I take the screenshots from that particular resource is so that we can stay consistent with our definitions when we come to our flashcard studies, right? So if you're in the actual group, you'll know exactly where this screenshot came from. This video is on YouTube, so you guys may not know where I'm getting some of this stuff from, but it's from a book that we use, and I just take screenshots of it and make the PowerPoint. But for this, make sure that you know your cloud models. Don't get tripped up on CompTia Security Plus. They will definitely ask you questions about these cloud models. Now, social engineering is one of my favorite topics when it comes to cybersecurity. I've always been interested in it because for me, it's the topic that closely relates most to espionage and being a spy, and that's pretty much what I always thought. Getting into cybersecurity would be about hacking and all those things. You have to be spyful and secret to get people's information. So I always had a love for this topic here. So let's get into it. There's a bunch of different ways. Pretty much, social engineering is the exploit of a human being. When I say exploiting a human being, usually I'm talking about the kindness. A lot of people are inherently kind, not me. So you're not gonna get a lot of these tactics over on me because I'm a very paranoid and non-trusting person. So as soon as you ask me for anything, I already don't trust you, and I'm already distancing myself, right? But everybody's not like me. So some people, especially at work, they try to be nice to people, just because they're at work. And that's an exploit that a hacker can use or to manipulate situations. Sometimes they don't even have to manipulate the actual person in person. It could be on the phone, it could be an email. Usually an email, it's phishing, but a CompTIA can also consider phishing over the telephone. Phishing, when you think about it, is like you're fishing for something. So here you're fishing for a vulnerable human that can give you information that they normally wouldn't give you, but you're tricking them, pretty much like a con artist, when you think about it, into giving you information or access, or some kind of a code, if you will, a password or something. And usually it comes with some kind of a story, right? But not all the time. So email, phishing email is pretty much, I send an email to you. It has some blah 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 in there. I'm usually, the attack is I'm trying to get you to click on something in the email, like a link or something in there. And when you click it, um, depending on what the hack is, I can get you to go to a fake website, or it could download some malware or whatever. Uh, Telephone is pretty much those telephone scams. I'm pretty sure you've seen them on YouTube. They're calling you, asking you for whatever information. They're trying to pretend that they're Verizon and your phone's going to get disconnected because you forgot to make a payment, and they'll take the payment over the phone, whatever, just trying to trick you into doing some nonsense. But it's all fake. And people fall for it sometimes because of the way that the person crafts the story. In person is usually going to require the person who's performing the attack to be a very confident person. So that's why social engineering is kind of exciting to me, because you're an actor now. You're actually in the process of hacking somebody's mind, if you will. You put on your UPS costume or your police outfit or stripper outfit, whatever whatever your outfit is, you're gonna play the role now. So this is kind of like role playing, and you're gonna go in there and you act like some character, and you're gonna tell a story to a person, and they're gonna give you the keys to the castle. That's the fictitious way to think about this, but that's kind of what you're doing. You're playing a role here. Now here goes some target phishing, because when I went back to the email phishing, you're sending a random email to who knows, you spam everybody with email. That's no target in general. But however, if you do some reconnaissance, hold tight. I'm gonna drink some soda here because throat dry. Pause. Excuse me. So with target phishing, you're a little more crafty here. You're doing some recon, maybe on the company or organization or whatever, and you look and see who is more important than the regular mailroom clerk. Maybe you want to get the accountant, right? Or you want to get the payroll HR department, somebody like that, right? So if you're targeting a specific higher up, it's going to be called spear phishing, right? So you're using a different tool now. You're not using a fishing pole. You're actually going to use a spear. And that's a spear. You got to be a little more crafty, because if you're fishing with an actual spear, think about the actual process of doing this. You're going to have to be a little more crafty, right? Because if you throw it in the water, chances are you're going to miss. But if you're skillful, chances are you're not going to miss. So these people are skillful. These emails are usually a little more professionally crafted. They don't have the typos that the regular phishing spam emails have. So sometimes these are a little more dangerous. Now, whaling is when you target the CEO, the person who runs the department, the very high up in the company type of person. Now, believe it or not, this may be one of the easier ones depending on what you craft up, because remember, this guy is a high up person in the company, so he's responsible for a lot of different things. Depending on what you're telling him, what urgency you craft into this hoax, um, you will get more from this person than anybody else. And this is just one person. It's not like you got to fish for a billion things. So this is one targeted individual. So it's a very big target, and the reward is huge usually, because this is the big fish, you call them, the whale, right? Vishing is just fishing by phone. Um, so pretty much when I showed you the first slide, email, in person, phone, on phone would be vishing. Uh, Voice phishing you. Like I'm using my voice and calling you, and I'm crafting up some ridiculous story so that you could believe me, and that's where the hack is. So it's just a different medium that I'm using, but the attack is still the same. I'm trying to get you to do something that you would not normally do. And here's some more social attacks. A watering hole, which is a very interesting type of phishing, right? So let's say I can't get anybody in the company because for whatever reason their system is a lot more secure than I know how to breach. Like I don't know how to hack every system. I'm just going to be honest with that. That's just facts for me. I don't know how to hack everything. Um, as a matter of fact, I don't know how to hack most things. I just know how to hack what I know how to hack and practice. I'm getting better damn near every day because I put the work in for my penetration testing and my social engineering, and I put the work into that, but I don't have experience hacking everything under the sun. So if this particular company that I'm trying to attack has no ins for me, I don't have any kind of way that I know how to exploit, maybe with more reconnaissance, I can figure out, a lot of these people use a specific website, or they go to a specific menu to order for lunch, like from Alpaca, right? Right? Wherever. And they do that for company parties a lot, so they have an account with this place. That place, Alpaca or Bob Evans or wherever, I'm pretty sure the security on that website may not be as complex as this company, right? So I may be able to get something going on there, like some kind of a cross-site scripting or something, cross-site request forgery. We went over these attacks, right? Did you do any of the labs? Oh, I'm talking to the people in the actual group. Sorry for YouTube. You have no idea what I'm saying about lab. But the people in the actual group, we have labs on how to make these attacks happen so that we can have the actual hands-on skills that goes along with this, and that helps us with the performance-based questions that they may ask on the Security Plus. So we're going through labs, performing cross-site scripting and buffer overflows and attacks like that. So some of these things make a lot more sense. How we would do a watering hole attack, because we would figure out, oh, we can attack a website, run a script on there. So now whenever somebody from that business goes to that website to order lunch, they're going to get attacked, because now they're taking information from our script that's on that website instead of ordering their sandwich. That's how we ran that attack. And some ways that we could craft these attacks when we're on the phone, like with the vishing, they have authority, intimidation, consensus. These are just different ways that I can make you feel maybe guilty, or I could act like let's say I'm the CEO, and you never met the CEO of your company because you just work in the warehouse. So the CEO could call you, and you like, what the hell is the CEO calling me for? But then on the other hand, you might be like, shit, the CEO's calling me. I better do whatever the CEO says, but I don't want to get fired. They'd be firing a lot of people here for some random nonsense, and I don't want to just get fired. The CEO is telling me he needs this or whatever. I'm wondering, why doesn't he tell the person who's over me this? You don't got time to figure none of that out, CEO, right? So you do whatever the stupid CEO, because it's really not the CEO, because everything that you're thinking, why wouldn't the CEO go to a person over you? Why would he call some random person in the warehouse? That what you're thinking makes sense. You should go with your gut feeling, but since you were overwhelmed with I don't want to get fired, they're firing people here for random nonsense, that was more on your mind. You told the hacker what he needed to know, and you still got fired. So you see, you can't be falling for these attacks, because they can actually get you in a lot of trouble. And that would be an intimidation that I did, and an authority. So the authority was that I was a person that was high up in the company, that I have authority, somebody that you should listen to. In your mind, you created the intimidation because you got scared thinking that you were going to get fired. Um, so that's how that could work together. Scarcity will be those scammers that tell you, oh, you just won an Xbox. We got 3 left. We be calling people all day. Nobody's been picking these Xbox ups. We got 3 left. Do you want yours? All you got to do is pay $59.99 shipping and handling. Give me your credit card information, and I'll sign you right on up. Here's a picture of the Xbox. Send it to your email, and we can handle this transaction, right? Your dumbass wants the Xbox because you couldn't get it from somewhere else, and you think that is a perfect deal. So it's too good to be true is usually not true. So that's a scarcity type of thing. They make you think that there's not a lot of whatever it is that you want left, so you think you're going to be faster than everybody else and get it. Only thing you're fast is to get scammed. So be very careful. Consensus is where you're going to find let's say you're one of those people that like to check reviews, right? If you're going to buy a product, like me, I'm one of those people, like especially with my tech products, I'll check the reviews, like on new products. Do other people in the field use it? Is it useful? There are a lot of use cases that they could get from it, because I don't want to just sit on my freaking desk collecting dust like this freaking Flipper Zero, because I don't use it. Not much use case for me. I mean, it's a good tool, but for me, I don't use it. I use the Wi-Fi pineapple more than that because I'm more into Wi-Fi hacking, right? So use case, I should have thought of that before I got it. But with consensus, if it was something that somebody said, oh, a bunch of people on the forum is talking about the Flipper Zero is excellent for Wi-Fi hacking. It's the best tool in the world for Wi-Fi hacking. It's better than the Wi-Fi Pineapple. I might have said, wow, I'm into Wi-Fi hacking. That Flipper Zero really sounds like a good tool. Let me buy it because a lot of people are saying that it's great for Wi-Fi hacking, right? Now, I totally made that story up. I used the fuck out of my Flipper Zero, but I just pretexted you, right? This is a pretexting. I made up a fabricated story telling you about how I didn't like my Flipper Zero and how it's sitting on my desk collecting dust, which it's not. But I told you that so that you can see why those reviews would have swayed me into getting the Flipper Zero because everybody else is saying that it was good for Wi-Fi hacking. It is not good for Wi-Fi hacking per se, but the reason why I got it was the consensus from a bunch of hackers who flooded the comment sections and the forums with fake ass reviews make people who want to get the product for certain reasons get the product for those reasons, and then when they get it, they find out that they've been duped into getting some nonsense because none of these reviews are true. They're the fake reviews. So that's pretty much how consensus works here, right? I mentioned pretexting, but um, I didn't give you anything more on it. So pretexting is pretty much you just make up a random story, and the person that you're trying to scam listens to the story all the while you're softening them up for the attack. So let's say, for instance, I tell you, I know that you're an editor or you a Photoshop or whatever. You work with photos and you're very good, right? And I craft up some nonsense story telling you, oh my God, everybody's been trying to give me these exorbitant prices on this work that I'm trying to get done for my portfolio. And I don't really have this kind of money. I don't, I'm ignorant. I don't really know how to do the Photoshop work. And I'm not sure if the document that I'm using here is that serious to where people are trying to charge me $3,700, $4,400. The lowest price that I got was $2,200, and that's way above my budget. My budget is 1,200 bucks, and I don't see what on earth is so complicated about this photo that people are trying to charge me exorbitant prices. I seen your work. I know it's good. Can you look at this file for me and tell me like if you could do the work for my budget? $1,200 is the most I'm trying to pay. And if you could do it for that, then we can talk. If you can't, then just, don't even respond back. It's whatever. I don't want to waste your time. I'll just figure something out. But I do have a timeline that I'm working on. This is for my finals, and I got about 2.5 weeks left. So please, if you can help me within that time, I don't want to fail this class. I'll email you the file, blah, 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 blah. With all that pretext and nonsense, you as the Photoshopper might be like, God damn, what the hell? Somebody charging this dude $4,700 and $3,000 for a Photoshop? And he has $1,200. That's a pretty decent budget. I can make myself $1,200. What's so interesting about this file? Let me open it. Duh, you dumbass, you open the file. So that was the scam, but that whole pretext was bullshit. So you see what I'm saying? And hackers don't give a damn about morals or scruples and half that stuff that worried about, oh, this poor guy is scamming him for $1,200 or whatever. They don't care about none of that. They're just going to run the scam. You have to be aware of these things. This has nothing to do about CompTia, but this is what CompTia would want you to know, that that whole crafted attack would be a pretext, and that the person who fell for a social engineering attack. And if the person is using intimidation to scare the person into doing something, they want you to recognize that the social engineering attack being used is intimidation. So that's why I put this graphic on the screen, because it does show you that social engineering is real. Now, these other graphics are going to show you how real it is, because social engineering has all these different things. Like for me, I have a social engineering kit, right? I'm into this. So this is one of the things that I have is an amplified listening device, pretty much like a gun that you can point. And the range of this thing is astronomical. This is good for eavesdropping when you're trying to listen to somebody's conversation. This is a technique that we use in social engineering, is eavesdropping. So you kind of listen. Well, there's two different things. I don't want to get it confused because sometimes in eavesdropping for CompTia, they mean that you're trying to uh, snatch radio frequency ID signals from like a smart card. That you could be done is called eavesdropping. I have no idea why they call that eavesdropping, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being nosy and ear hustling is what I'm saying. Listening to conversations that you're not privy to. Sometimes you have to be really close to do that. So you could, that's not too conspicuous. You want to hide yourself when you're doing this. You don't want to be too visible because that's part of the hack, right? So if you get a listening device like this, you can distance yourself from the target and still hear exactly what they're saying, right? So that's a device that's used for social engineering. Sometimes they also use hidden cameras. Now, this looks like one of those iPhone cameras on the back of your phone, right? Absolutely not. This is a hidden camera that you can plant. It has multiple focus, and that little circular device on the side of it is the button that starts the record feed. So if you plant this somewhere, you can get a visual, and if you plant bugs, you can get audio, right? Plant bugs, and sometimes you have, lenses. You can see like all these little things you craft together is all in the realm of social engineering. And CompTia would make sure that you know some of these devices, the purpose of them. You don't have to know the names of any brands or anything like that. They're not asking you to know anything. These graphics that I put on the screen will not be tested at all. That's just so that I can show you some of the things to be aware of that people are out there doing as far as their social engineering hacks. Be very mindful of that stuff, okay? So that's it for the jam session. It was a little longer than I expected just because of some of the concepts we could really get a little deeper into. But just be mindful that we did cover some stuff that we can use for multiple choice strategy and just knowledge of concepts that they want you to know a full range of, like how many backup types there are, who controls data, what are your cloud platforms, and you don't want to get tripped up on any of that stuff. So if you're taking the test and this helped you, give me a thumbs up, please. This is a startup channel. If you want to subscribe, you get a lot of content like this, and that will definitely help us out to put more content out to help students. And on that note, signing off for the second jam session.